This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Violin's new V Street platform. We all know that running a business in the trades can be tough, but you don't have to do it alone. V Street, Violin's new online platform, gives you access to hundreds of trade-specific business documents, procedures, data, analytics, and CEC-approved training courses. Receive practical guidance from their team of expert advisors to help you build a successful business. And right now, you can try it for free. Check it out at violin.com/vstreet. This episode is also brought to you by Epic Estimates. Whether it's fire, wind, water, or mold damage, Epic Estimates delivers fast, accurate estimates for your property damage needs. Using Xactimate and Symbility, we take your scan documentation and scope to create detailed estimates, helping you save time and avoid costly mistakes. Visit epicestimates.com to learn more. Hey restorers, welcome to a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today I'm excited to have somebody from magicplan on with me. You know, the technology has been the big talk of the industry in the last few years, and how to help getting paid, help contractors get paid, how to have documentation that works better, all of the things. So I am excited to have Andreas Böhm with me from magicplan. He is the CEO, and magicplan has really been making moves in the industry this year. So I'm excited to talk more about what magicplan is, kind of the technology behind it. And this isn't a new company. It's new to the US, but they've been in other markets. So I'm interested to hear kind of the background of the company, and then they have a few announcements as well. So anyway, we're going to talk about all the things. Andreas, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am going to toss it over to you to have you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background.
Michelle, thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm really excited to be here today. We had a very joyful conversation already a couple of weeks back to get ourselves prepared. So that really carried me through today. So who am I? Why am I doing what am I doing right now here in that magicplan? I mean, me personally, I started back in the restoration/remodel industry in Germany, in Berlin in early 2013. So that's 11 years back. And I basically was brought on to this industry because it's my family business back in Germany. And I just did the normal training, kind of join a project manager, run along, pick up as you go, right? And that was super interesting to me. Berlin at the time, great experience. But I was a little bit kind of let down by the prospect of running around with my notebook and kind of like taking notes and having a fumbly camera still at the time, and at a later stage back in the office transferring all of this to my computer, in that case Excel. So this is really kind of what still carries me today, kind of how can we use technology to make that workflow a little bit easier, a little bit more kind of like up to speed, up to date. And so 11 years in, I'm here running magicplan, which is exactly supporting the people in the field in that workflow. So how do you map what you see on site and bring that information, shared with your team, shared with your stakeholders, make it look nice and orderly? That is really my job, what I've been doing, why I've been doing it, and what I plan on continue doing for quite some time.
So is there a big difference between the US and European markets? Like, did you have to adjust the technology when you decided to come over to North America, or is it pretty like drying and fire damage? It is what it is.
It is what it is. I think, I mean, if you ask what are the differences, I mean, magicplan has always been a North American company, North American brand, right? I got to know it as a user and then was able to buy into the company, but it was North America all along. I think we did not focus on the restoration industry for the early years of the company, but we've done so now, and that is in part to do because of my personal background. Like, right? That's what I understand. That's what I know, and that's what I think. Yeah, we want to focus on just out of that kind of personal reason. And then if you talk about differences, I mean, the US has been ahead, obviously in terms of technology. So I I don't see that the technology is actually different. And if so, the US would have been ahead. What I think is a little bit different if you were to compare the two markets is kind of company dynamics and market structures. So, I mean, the US is so big, so vast,
Yeah.
but it tends to fall, I think, into regional, local pockets and kind of like independent pockets sooner. I think, for example, especially where I'm coming from in Germany, it's all so much tighter together. So
Hmm.
you have a few players that are kind of like have 1,000 employees or more.
Okay.
So I think this is the majority of the difference, and I think that's also what we see. Like when you're kind of a large corporate, maybe you spend more time on trying to get yourself kind of like standardized, right?
Hmm.
And that's where we've seen kind of like the technology adaptation, and especially us being kind of taken up maybe a little bit earlier for whatever reason, so that we had kind of a really great success in applying Magic Plan kind of like throughout the restoration industry in Germany, and we like to continue and do the same now here in the US.
So what made you decide that the US was a good place to come or a good market to tap into next?
Well, first of all, I think people are ready for technology. They
Hmm.
kind of like are actually demanding it. So
Yes.
that is always nice if
Yeah.
you try to provide that, if you have an audience that's receptive to it. And I think that's the joy in the conversations that you have. And so this is kind of like market readiness in terms of mindset. And then obviously, I mean, the US is big, right?
Yeah.
So um,
Big.
you want to be here, right?
Yes. So I know you have part of your team in Quebec. Did you have a team in Quebec prior to coming to North America, or is this part of your like expansion as you go?
No, no. The Quebec is that's the origin story. So
Okay.
Magic Plan was kind of initiated in Quebec. It fell out of this Autodesk CAD,
Hmm.
computer aided design software. Like
Yep.
that was the original founding team, and that's why maybe it was a bit of a stretch to go to the restoration industry.
Yeah.
But Quebec has been our kind of like home country, hometown, or Montreal, more specific forever. And yeah, we still keep the team here, but now we are actually our team is largely based in the US, so in St. Petersburg
Yep.
and in Portland. But yeah, the proximity is still helpful.
Yes, for sure, for sure. It allows Alan to drive places like to the
Yeah,
event that we were at last week, which is great for
yeah,
him.
yeah, yes,
Driving distance is nice.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Magic Plan a little bit and what it is, because now we've gotten this far into the conversation. I'm guessing people at this point are like, okay, I haven't heard of this. I want to know more. So explain what Magic Plan is.
Okay. So Magic Plan basically, first and foremost, is a tool for your kind of like on-site documentation. And what do I mean by this? It's on your phone. It's basically a camera scan of the real world, and then that translates it into a sketch so that you can use to kind of produce an ESX. But it's also taking the pictures, photos, right? So that you know, okay, that was the situation I encountered. And then it's easy note taking. So you just take your notes as you go. And this is kind of like the initial step of Magic Plan. You use your phone to capture everything you see and also what you think while you're on site, because that has been kind of like my principle. When I'm leaving the site, I want to be sure that I'm done, right? I want to have the end result at my fingertips and basically say, okay, I've understood the place, I've captured everything, and I've also collected all the notes that I had while being present at the property.
Mhm.
Because if I have that when I enter my vehicle, kind of like that job is off of
Yeah.
my worry list, right? It's done. So that is step number one. And then we want to support you to communicate with your team to whomever, so
Mhm.
you can pass on that information in different types of reports and whatnot, interfaces with different parties. We're having announced integration with clean claims recently, you can push it into Xactimate, into CoreLogic. So we want to support you in your workflow, kind of like beyond or after the actual site of the claim or damage. So I think this is in essence of what Magic Plan is, and then what is makes us proud, and what we are going to basically we are going to launch this podcast, and we're going to launch kind of like our new version of Magic Plan. So there we are leaning even heavier on photo and note taking, and also we want to start support you in terms of your scope of work and estimates, because
Mhm.
kind of as far as and good as it is that you capture whatever you see and think, I mean, in the end, you need to turn that into dollars, right? And I think we can have a really sweet spot there, because it's not only your instant sketch or your instant note taking, but it's basically also your instant takeoff. And that instant takeoff combined with your price list basically pumps out an estimate again, um, pretty much uh, as you
Yeah.
walk through the property. So
So, okay, so on the note taking side, I'm curious, like, is it people typing things in or is it like audio and it will dictate what you're saying? How does the note taking functionality work?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest is just speak, right? And the phone does the rest for you. And what I think it's great is that you also not just have like one continuous stream of your note taking, but you have like for every individual room, for every individual um, problem that you see, you have kind of like your structured notes that you can then refer back to. And yeah, so this is, I think, as simple as it gets.
How do you decide, like, you have this new version coming out? How did, like, what is the process of figuring out, okay, here are the things that we need to update and here's how we should do it? I'm sure that your background as kind of a contractor and working in the field had to have helped significantly with that. But, how do you observe the pain points and figure out how to evolve a technology?
Yeah. Well, one is we've been around for 11 years. So 11 years, some kind of renovation helps, right? So there's one part where we just said we want to renovate our place and make it look nice again. And
Yep.
then what was the stuff that we wanted to evolve on? It's, I think, this instant connection between maybe your back office and on-site. So we invested heavily in something that is becoming widely accessible, but in combination with kind of like our instant results, you basically now have a seamless transfer and instant transfer from whatever notes or photos or whatnot you're taking on site. You have the back office basically at the same time seeing this very information. So this is something that I think reduces the time span between kind of like when you it basically brings people together closer, right?
Hmm.
And you can have the conversation kind of like ongoing in the very moment. And that
Yep.
is again back to my principle of I want to be done when I leave the site.
Yes.
Kind of like the shorter you can make that gaps between dealing with that very job, kind of like the less you forget, the
Hmm.
less yeah, something kind of like comes up in between. So this is one element where we just think it's going to really make your operations more efficient, more streamlined, because you deal with one problem, you basically um, yeah, get to the end of it, and then you can continue on the next onto the next, and you don't have to juggle kind of different projects all at the same time, waiting for when do I receive feedback here and whatnot. It's like you're done when you're done.
You are done when you're done. I agree. I can't imagine, like, I've never been on the contractor side, but going from house to house, I can just imagine, when you're house shopping, you immediately forget. Once you've looked at 10 houses, you have no idea what was in the first or second house. Like, those details are gone out of your head. So that's right. You got to get it out of your head immediately.
That's one of my stories. So when I was starting as a project manager, I was doing project management stuff, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to call a person that I had called earlier that day. And I thought, okay, I just pick up the number from my recent calls list. And while going through it, I noticed I had done 42 calls that very morning, since like from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's like if you do a 42 calls in a kind of like morning hour window, I mean, obviously your mind is busy and you forget stuff. So this is really try and do as much as you can in kind of like your focus period, and then yeah, you're
Yeah.
finished.
Do as much as you can in your focus period. Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a lot of calls. I think I'd be laying on the floor if I had 42 calls in one morning. So, my goodness. Okay, so talk a little bit about you guys also have an event coming up in Florida, and I'm excited to be part of it and to come check it out. And you have a great agenda that you're already putting together. So talk a little bit about the event capture and the idea behind it.
Yeah. So we are really excited to have our first ever North America event. And why do we think it's a great idea to have this? We had some previous experience in Europe where we hosted events for the fourth year now. And I'm just amazed by kind of the openness of the conversation that you can produce if you have like an intimate group of people talking about what busies their minds day in, day out.
Right.
And this is what we are trying to replicate there with Capture in Florida in December. So where we're trying to really get to the core of what is everyone struggling with. And I mean, we've now made it like we don't want to try and be put in, or it's also what I tried to say earlier. There is a certain way of how things have to go, right? And it is not great if you feel limited by that, but it would be great if you could feel kind of like empowered by that.
Yeah.
And I think this is the conversation that we want to try and get in terms of, okay, it's great if everyone understands one another, but how can we make that and further that it doesn't feel constrained, but that it feels empowering? And that is the conversation that we are trying to make happen there. And so, yeah, this is something that only happens if you're kind of like in a trustworthy environment and can talk open. And that's what we are trying to achieve.
So who are you hoping to bring to the table for these discussions, and who is your ideal attendee? Like, is this good for any contractor, and who do you anticipate being part of the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that discussion, how to feel empowered, is good for every contractor, right? And how to how to kind of like adapt to whatever the industry demands that still feels great. So what we hope to achieve is that we have kind of people that drive the industry come together to discuss and come up with kind of like the next steps, the solutions they want to see. So whomever is attracted by that proposition is kind of a great attendee. And that's what I told you in the very opening sentence, who am I? So,
Yep.
and why am I doing this? I kind of like felt constrained and limited by what I encountered. And I thought, well, maybe there is a way that we can change this. So
Yep.
whomever wants to be part of that discussion should join us in Florida in December.
I think there's probably a lot of people that would like to be part of that discussion. It's a great idea. Okay. I always ask people that are on the podcast that are in the tech space what advice they would give contractors that are trying to figure out what tech platforms are best for their company. There are a lot of options out there, and every trade show we go to, there are different options, new options. Some go away, some come in, and it's just like this constantly moving, evolving industry. So, what advice do you give contractors who are thinking I'm ready to make an update, maybe I'm ready to make some changes, but I don't even know where to start in evaluating my options?
That is really coming down to, I think, individual preferences. And
Right.
I'm resorting a little bit back to my previous answer and my personal experience. So I um, I liked something which I kind of like stayed in control of what was happening.
Hmm.
I think I hammered on this for quite a bit. I want to kind of like determine I'm done when I'm done. I want to try and bring everything kind of like together as closely as possible. And that is just kind of my operating principle. And what I can kind of communicate on and say, like I value that greatly. And then in terms of technology, I mean, for us, for example, and I can state that we made a big bet on kind of like mobile
Hmm.
as a platform, so phones, but also tablets. I was kind of like a iPad generation one power user
Yep.
because I think that's just a device that's so perfectly suited for our
Yeah.
industry. Um, and kind of like there's going to be evolvements of this, but just this form factor and the dominant kind of platforms in this mobile space, that was something that we kind of bet big as well ourselves as a company. And yeah, that ease of use of this kind of like consumer devices, because that was a discussion. I mean, we are 10 years in, but kind of like, is it a consumer device or is it a pro device? I think the ease
Mhm.
of use and the ease of use in my mind translates into this empowerment. So
Yeah.
those are my words, but that's just or my convictions. And I felt always that this was um, eventually really accessible to everyone in my team. I think I trained in my team over 100 project managers, and kind of like seeing them how easy and quickly they were able to adopt or adapt, but mostly adopt the technology. And then
Yeah.
the kind of like pride it instilled in them when they said, okay, suddenly I'm not doing rough hand sketches, but I'm producing kind of architectural drawings. Um, that really kind of made the switch and made the change to technology easy, because it helped and it instilled some kind of pride, and it just showed, okay, this is progress I actually want to go to and use. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Anything else that you want to add? I will put out there for people that are listening and want to know more. Magicplan.app, I believe, is the website that they can go to. And Capture is going to be in Orlando on December 4th and 5th with a networking event, I believe, the night before. And then sessions and all of the things on the 5th. I will be there. I'm looking forward to it very much. I know some other people that are going to be there as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of good discussions and topics covered. So props to your team for getting that together. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, general invitation. Come join us in Florida. I think we've confirmation from really a host of high notes speakers. And I always say those type of events, they carry me through the year.
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking forward to those discussions to kind of like carry us through the next year and the years beyond.
Perfect. Well, Andreas, thank you so much for being here. I've enjoyed the conversation. I've been enjoying getting to know your team more and more about your technology. So hopefully we'll cross paths at a bigger show in 2025. Hopefully you do some of the trade show circuit with your team so we can meet in person. Thank you for being here.
Oh, 100%. Thank you, Michelle.
For more restoration today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.